At today's tips from a therapist's office, we're going to cover an important but not often talked about aspect of change, which is loss. In the therapy world, we use the phrase change is loss as a way to give room and give opportunity to discuss all pieces of going through a significant change. So when we talk about change is loss, it is not to bring a negative discussion into the room. It is to acknowledge that there is all kinds of facets to going through a change. And whenever we go through a change, even a change that is predominantly positive in our view, there will be losses that are results of that change. And that is something that is important to acknowledge, maybe process and talk about, or just give space to with the people that you trust. So when I say change is loss, it is to mention that if you go through a big change, you change schools, somebody changes jobs, you have a new friend or a new friend group or people that you're spending time with, or any kind of normal change that you might experience, there will always be losses as a result of the fact that something new is happening. So to acknowledge that change is loss is to just give room to the idea that when you do have to go through something new or novel, it's going to have an emotional effect, no matter how positive or simple it is. So the way that we think about that then is we think about how is it that you can navigate the loss without slipping into avoidant behaviors that only focus on pieces of the change. Avoidant behaviors can be things like isolation, substance use, addictive behaviors, those kinds of concerns that make you lose time so that you don't have to feel a difficult feeling. For instance, if you change schools or you quit an activity because you don't have the time or you've lost interest in it, you may not miss the activity, but there might be a couple of people that you suddenly realize you're not speaking with as frequently. So that's the loss from that change. It does not mean that the change itself was a mistake necessarily. It means that there were losses associated with it, which is a natural part of change. And you don't want to slip into behaviors like an addictive behavior or substance use or avoidance or shutting down to not feel those things, because it's okay to have a little bit of grief associated with a big change. Things like moving, changing jobs, changing schools, changing classes, where maybe you're no longer going to see the same people when you walk by a hallway. These are all things that, even with a positive side, bring a loss. And when we have the ability to acknowledge that loss, then we won't slip into concerning behaviors like an increase in substance use or an increase in avoidant behaviors. We can simply acknowledge that all things that have a brightness and a change to them can also have a certain darkness and a loss to them. And being able to appreciate both sides of that spectrum is the way that we're able to appreciate and connect with the fullness of being a human day to day. So it's important to talk about these things, acknowledge these things, own these things, maybe even say to somebody that not talking to them or seeing them is going to be a difficult thing, even though this is a positive change. But making the space to be able to say that is the number one way to just work through it and to have that full experience that is so important to being able to manage change.